You could feel the tension through the screen. Standing under the blinding lights of Fox News Hannity, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history, faced off with none other than Hollywood icon and outspoken liberal Robert De Niro. He came in swinging, "Trump is a disaster," and Leavitt, just another puppet. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some booing. But Karoline didn't blink. Armed with facts, fire, and a fierce loyalty to Trump, she stepped up to the mic, not just to defend herself, but to completely dismantle De Niro's smug Hollywood narrative. Live in front of millions. What happened next? De Niro lost it, and the internet exploded. This wasn't just another debate. It was a generational and ideological clash that left viewers stunned. Before we dive into the full showdown, hit that like button, drop where you're watching from in the comments, and subscribe, because this political moment, it's one you don't want to miss. The Fox News studio buzzed with energy, a hum of anticipation that ran beneath the sharp smell of hairspray, the shuffle of note cards, and the glow of camera lights. It wasn't just another night of cable news. It felt like something was about to explode. Inside the control room, producers whispered to each other behind glowing monitors. The audience, a mix of red-blooded conservatives and hand-picked liberal guests, sat like they were in church, waiting for something dramatic to unfold, because everyone knew what was coming. Robert De Niro was in the building, and not the De Niro from Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. No, this was the newer De Niro, the grizzled political firebrand who'd gone from box office hero to cultural grenade launcher. Love him or hate him, when he opened his mouth, people listened or fought. 3, 2, 1, the director mouthed, and the curtain lifted. Out stepped De Niro, slow and deliberate, like he owned the place. Black suit, white shirt, no tie. That salt and pepper hair combed back like he was playing a mafia don in one of his old flicks. He took the mic with one hand, the crowd already beginning to react. Liberals leaned forward with glee. Conservatives tightened their jaws. Everyone else lifted their phones, hungry to catch the next viral soundbite. "I'm not here to play games," he started, that gritty New York accent slicing through the silence. "Let's stop pretending Donald Trump is some kind of patriot. He's a walking disaster." A pause, then the real punch. "And this Karoline Leavitt, she's his mouthpiece, a little Gen Z puppet in heels." Liberal cheers erupted. Someone in the front row stood and clapped like it was a Broadway matinee. The cameras caught every smirk, every eye roll, every sip of smug water. But backstage, Karoline Leavitt didn't flinch. She stood in the shadows listening. No earpiece, no phone, just her and a small leather Bible in her hand, the one her grandmother gave her the day she left for Washington. Inside was a handwritten note that simply read, "Stand firm." She breathed in, closed her eyes for just a second. Not because she was nervous, but because she knew what came next wasn't a rebuttal. It was a reckoning. De Niro was still going. "She reads whatever Trump hands her. She doesn't think. She recites." "Like a trained dog," he scoffed, waving toward the wings of the stage. "I've been fighting for this country longer than she's been alive. I've earned my right to speak. She's just playing politics." The room crackled with electricity. Hannity shifted in his chair, giving the camera a quick glance. Even he seemed unsure where this was headed. "And look," De Niro said, hand in the air like a tired professor, "I don't care what church she goes to or what book she waves around. This isn't about God. This is about truth. And truth is, she's not qualified to tie my shoes, let alone represent the President of the United States." A few gasps, but the damage was done. He'd mocked her faith, her youth, her entire identity. And as the applause faded and De Niro took a seat, crossing his legs like a man waiting for applause to return. Karoline stepped forward, and the sound of her heels on the hardwood floor was louder than the cheers had been. Click, click, click. It was the sound of confidence, of conviction, of a woman who'd taken hits before, but never forgotten how to hit back. The lights caught her deep blue blazer and framed her in the center of the stage like a painting. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't gesture. She simply walked toward the mic and stared straight at Robert De Niro, and the audience went still. "Mr. De Niro," she began, voice calm, rich with clarity. "I've seen your movies. You've played war heroes, mobsters, presidents. But tonight, you're just another angry man trying to silence a woman who dares to believe in something different." The air went thick. "You called me a puppet, but I don't read someone else's script. I don't play pretend. And unlike you, I don't get paid to act like a patriot." The MAGA side erupted in cheers. De Niro's smug smile cracked for the first time. "My name is Karoline Leavitt," she said, turning toward the crowd. "I'm 27 years old. I come from Atkinson, New Hampshire, a town so small we used to wave at every passing car because we probably knew the driver." She chuckled softly. So did the audience. "My family didn't have limousines. We had a used truck lot and an ice cream stand. My father taught me the value of sweat. My mother taught me scripture. And my grandfather, a Korean War veteran, taught me what it means to serve." She looked back at De Niro, eyes sharp now. "And you, who've spent your life in makeup chairs and press tours, think you know more about this country than I do?" She shook her head slowly. "You sit there in your tailored suits, mocking young women of faith while sipping lattes in penthouses. But I'm not afraid of you. I wasn't raised to flinch when someone insults me. I was raised to stand." A pause, then the hammer dropped. "And before we go further, Hannity, would you mind rolling that clip?" Behind them, the screen lit up. Robert De Niro on CNN. "I like Obama," he said. "He's got vision. He's smart." The audience broke into murmurs. De Niro stiffened. Karoline turned back to the camera. "That's you," she said, "praising the same man whose policies hollowed out the middle class, whose foreign policy left our allies hanging, whose economy forced small-town families like mine to make impossible choices." She stepped closer to the front of the stage. "You want to call me a puppet? Fine. But don't forget, you've been reading from Hollywood's playbook for 50 years. The studio crackled again. Phones were out. Every moment was being clipped, posted, shared. "And let me say one more thing," she said, voice rising. "You mocked my Bible. You mocked my faith. But that faith is what gets me through every battle. That faith is why I stand. That faith is what built this nation." She raised the Bible in her hand, steady, proud. "This isn't just leather and paper. It's generations of courage bound in one book. And no matter how loud you scream or how many Oscars you've got on a shelf, you will never, never take that from me." The audience rose. All of them. Even a few liberals clapped in the stunned admiration. Robert De Niro leaned back, blinking hard. Hannity said nothing. Karoline turned to the crowd and finished with a voice that no longer trembled, but roared. "I'm not Trump's puppet. I'm not your puppet. I'm the voice of millions of Americans you pretend don't exist. I stand for them. I fight for them. And tonight, I speak for them." And with that, she stepped back from the mic, arms at her side, head held high. The roar of the crowd followed her all the way off stage. And Robert De Niro, he never stood. He couldn't. There are moments in history, on battlefields and courtrooms, on live television, when something subtle yet seismic shifts. A line is crossed, a silence is shattered, and the whole room feels it. This was one of those moments. Karoline Leavitt had just unleashed a thunderous defense of her values, her faith in her generation. And the air in the studio was electric with something deeper than politics, something closer to reverence. Robert De Niro, still seated on stage, exhaled hard through his nose. His face, once smooth and smug, now tightened at the jaw. You could almost hear the gears turning. He was calculating, recovering, rehearsing a response. The silence stretched. The crowd waited. Then, leaning forward just enough to command the mic, he tried. "I've seen this before," he said, his voice gruff, his hands folded like he was back on set in a Scorsese film. A young face, polished, trained, full of passion, but passion without wisdom is dangerous. He looked directly at her now. "You think quoting scripture and waving a Bible makes you right? I've seen what blind loyalty looks like. It breaks countries. It breaks families." His tone wasn't fiery anymore. It was weary, condescending, the sound of a man trying to claim moral high ground after slipping off the cliff. Karoline didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She stepped forward, not quickly, but with the poise of someone raised to respect the silence before she speaks. "Mr. De Niro," she said calmly, "you've played men of grit and glory, but tonight you're just another angry celebrity trying to shame someone who believes in God, country, and tradition." A stir in the audience. She continued, her voice steady. "You think passion without experience is dangerous? But you know what's more dangerous? Experience without humility, fame without roots, and a platform used to mock the very people who gave you the right to speak." Her tone sharpened, not aggressive, but unflinching. "You call me a puppet? A mouthpiece? At least I'm not living off scripts written for me by Hollywood screenwriters while pretending to understand the soul of America." Applause rippled. Not thunderous yet, but growing. "You've played gangsters, Mr. De Niro," she said, pausing just long enough. "But you're not one. You're just loud." The room gasped, then erupted. That was the moment. The moment when cameras caught De Niro blinking, swallowing, shifting in his seat. She didn't stop. "You sit in gated mansions with security teams and lecture working families on what patriotism means. You stand behind velvet ropes and call people like my father, who spent 30 years running a truck repair shop, a problem with America." She turned to the audience now. "My dad's hands are rough. His back aches. But he taught me about integrity, not on a movie set, but on a porch, after work, with grease still under his fingernails." MAGA supporters stood. Liberals stayed silent. The energy had shifted. "Faith isn't a performance," she said. "It's something you carry when the cameras aren't rolling, when no one's clapping, when the job gets hard and the world mocks you for standing up." De Niro interjected, his voice tense now. "You think you're better than me because you quote the Bible?" Karoline turned back to him. "No, sir. I think I'm better than what you tried to make me." That was it. That was the kill shot. Even Hannity leaned back in his chair, letting the moment breathe. The crowd roared, but Karoline didn't bask in it. She nodded once, quietly, then stepped back. She didn't come for revenge. She came for truth. The internet didn't just react. It detonated. Clips of Karoline's takedown went live within seconds. Conservative accounts posted it raw and uncut. The caption simple: "You're not a gangster. You're just loud." In 5 minutes, 300,000 views. In 20, trending on X. In an hour, headlines on Breitbart, The Daily Wire, and even Yahoo. And then came the memes. One image of De Niro's stunned face, overlaid with Karoline's line. Another split screen, his 2016 Obama praise beside her 2024 speech. Hashtags exploded across every platform. And Karoline clapped back, "Josh, faith over fame. Josh, Gen Z, with guts. Josh, you're just loud." But this wasn't just digital. In rural Kansas, retired Marine Calvin Moore rewatched the clip 5 times before standing up and saluting the screen. That's how you talk to a bully, he told his grandson. In Birmingham, Alabama, Pastor Ellis quoted her speech during a Sunday sermon. Hollywood may have cameras, he preached, but God's people have conviction. On a back porch in Iowa, 3 generations of farmers shared a pot of coffee while replaying the moment on a cracked iPad. She brought something back, the eldest said, something we'd been missing. Even suburban moms, many of them apolitical, shared the video with comments like, I don't usually watch Fox, but I'm saving this. And the emotion behind it, raw, real, righteous. Because Karoline wasn't just a mouthpiece, she was a mirror, reflecting the values millions felt were forgotten. Meanwhile, the liberal media tried damage control. Think pieces poured in. Karoline's moment, populism or propaganda. De Niro dismantled why emotion beat experience. Faith as a weapon, should religion be used in debate? But none of it stuck, because this wasn't about a script. It was about a sentiment, about a country tired of being told what to think by people who'd never lived paycheck to paycheck, never sat in church pews, never watched their community get hollowed out while being blamed for it. One tweet from a veteran named James O'Donnell hit 100,000 likes. I lost friends in Iraq. I've buried neighbors to fentanyl. I've watched good people lose everything to inflation. Karoline Leavitt just spoke for all of us. On TikTok, Gen Z creators stitched her speech into tearful reaction videos. One young woman whispered, "This is the kind of woman I want to be." The clip wasn't just viral, it was a cultural firestorm. And Karoline, she didn't gloat, she didn't book a press tour, she went home, back to New Hampshire, back to her parents' house, back to the same room she used to pray in as a teenager, asking God for purpose. That night, her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. "You know what I love most about what you said?" she asked. Karoline looked over. "What?" "You didn't try to win," her mom said. "You tried to be true." Karoline smiled. "I didn't need to beat De Niro," she replied. "I just needed to remind people what matters." And remind them she did. Across the country, a quiet majority nodded, not at the zingers, not at the politics, but at the courage to speak plainly, hold steady, and never back down from the truth. She reminded America that loud doesn't mean right, fame doesn't mean integrity, and a heart anchored in faith will always speak louder than a fistful of awards. Backstage, Robert De Niro stormed off like a general retreating after a lost battle. His team scrambled behind him, interns fumbling clipboards, a PR rep murmuring spin lines under her breath. But nothing could spin what had just happened. His designer shoes clicked aggressively on the tile floor as he pushed past cameras and turned to his driver with one growled word: "Car." No comments, no statements, no press. Just the echo of something De Niro hadn't heard in years. Silence. Across the stage, Karoline Leavitt didn't storm. She didn't smirk. She stayed. A line had formed: veterans, working moms, young students, retired police officers, some with tears, others with applause, most with gratitude. A retired Marine stepped forward, stiff in his back but strong in his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, extending a calloused hand, "what you did tonight wasn't politics. That was patriotism, and that," he tapped his chest, "was for all of us." Karoline didn't just shake his hand. She held it, tight. "Thank you for your service," and she replied. "It gave me the freedom to speak." Next came a single mother who walked up slowly, holding her daughter's hand. "My little girl wants to know if she can be like you one day," she said. Karoline knelt, smiled gently at the girl, and said, "Only if you promise to speak the truth, even when it's hard." She nodded. The girl beamed. The moment was small, quiet, but it resonated across millions of hearts. By dawn, conservative America had already named her what liberal media feared most: unshakable. Breitbart declared in bold type, Karoline Leavitt just rewrote the playbook for political media. The Blaze ran the headline, "Hollywood just met its match," and she quoted scripture. Fox News looped her segment every hour with chirons like, "Faith versus fame, Leavitt slays De Niro." And in living rooms from Arkansas to Idaho, the emotional response flooded in. A Vietnam vet in Michigan called into a radio show with a crackling voice. "I've never cried during a cable news debate, but last night I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Courage." A grandmother in Oklahoma sent her granddaughter the clip with a simple note. "This is who you aim to be." And in Texas, a pastor adjusted his Sunday sermon. Instead of Ezekiel, he played Caroline's response. His closing line? "If she can stand on that stage, then you can stand in your home, in your school, and in your church." Even reluctant liberals had to admit something had happened. CNN said, "Karoline Leavitt, young, prepared, and unafraid." The Atlantic ran a somber piece. "Did Robert De Niro just prove that Hollywood has lost the working class?" And on MSNBC, one anchor sighed, "Say what you want about her politics." She didn't flinch. Meanwhile, Karoline didn't tweet a victory lap. Instead, she posted a picture. A worn Bible on a wooden table. The caption, "Truth doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs a voice." That weekend, church services across the country echoed with clips of her message. Small groups discussed her speech. Youth leaders handed out transcripts. Homeschool moms used her story as a lesson in courage. Veterans framed photos of her, moment beside their folded flags. And families, thousands of them, shared the video not because of party lines, but because of something deeper. She made them feel seen. She gave them permission to stand. And she reminded them that dignity didn't belong to the rich, the famous, or the loudest voice in the room. It belonged to those who still believed. In her hometown of Atkinson, New Hampshire, the leaves had just begun to fall. Karoline sat on her parents' porch with a steaming mug in her hand, her newborn son nestled against her chest. The internet was still buzzing, but here it was quiet, peaceful. Her mother stepped outside and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did something, Karoline," she said softly. Karoline looked down at her son. "I just told the truth." "No," her mother smiled. "You showed the country what it looks like when someone raised right refuses to back down." Inside, the fireplace crackled. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of a church bell. And in that small town, in that small moment, Karoline understood something that no award, no poll, no headline could give her. She had become a witness, not just to what was wrong in the world, but to what was still worth fighting for. And now, are you tired of being mocked for your faith, your values, your voice? Because if you are, Karoline Leavitt just gave you the blueprint. If you believe in truth, faith, and freedom, subscribe now. Share your story in the comments. When did you stand strong for what you believe in, even when it wasn't easy? Because this movement, it doesn't end with a debate. It begins with your voice.